Hi, I want to welcome you to our fundraiser this evening. We're glad you're here. Our first survivor speaker is going to be Sharri. Sharri is 67 years old. She has been with us for approximately 9 months and really has done so well in her healing journey. She's going to tell you her story. In addition to that, I wanted to tell you how accomplished Sharri is. Sharri, despite what she's been through, has had the strength to write a book that will be coming out in January. And also, she started a nonprofit to help other survivors of ritual abuse. We're very proud of Sharri. And so we're going to start out. I asked Sharri in this interview if she would tell us a bit about where she grew up and her family. So that's where we're going to begin.
I think it began while I was in my mother's womb. I think this was multi-generational.
So it came from your mother's side, not necessarily your father's side.
I think so, but because my dad was in the military, he had already had things happen to him. And I have memories. See, I was bused from the school, Catholic school, to a clinic behind a free clinic. And there was medical experimentation and lots and lots of stuff that went on there that I remember my dad being there too. And so he was every bit as much a victim of a lot of this as I was.
Okay. So this was as a result of your family's involvement in the Catholic Church, or was it more familial and abuse took place
It was
separate from the
familial.
church?
It was familial.
Okay.
It was also connected to the Catholic Church, also connected to the military and a criminal cultic group that involved police, people that are high up. In fact, when I left the area that I moved from, in recent years, I had memory of the chief of police being involved. And this is where I lived as an adult before I moved away. And my first husband and the the group was a different group because we moved. As a child, when I was 8 years old, we actually moved from Dubuque to a little town called Earlville, and there was stuff happening there. Somehow it's all connected, and these groups have people networking everywhere because the trafficking that was done to me starting as a young girl, I mean, very young. Um, Somehow that was connected to a criminal cultic group that was connected to my family and the Catholic Church and the school. The trafficking was done even during the day, even like during school hours sometimes, to initially to get us groomed. And then uh, I know I was taken to cemeteries. The Catholic Church had things going on in the church basement and outdoors. Um, and I wouldn't even know the location because there's a part that's conditioned to return and go. And this is a time of year where this is happening big time. And parts are conditioned to report to the cult group and to return. And there's parts put in place that will go. And the survivor, unless they know that they've gotten away, they may even still be uh, being abused and reprogrammed and reaccessed and still in it. But yeah,
Even
they
as
keep that.
adults.
Yeah, they keep that very hidden because the part will actually leave the home and either get picked up by someone or like they have all these code. knocks and horn honking and phone calls, so that then a part of you just goes and you really don't know where you're being taken. Because I had to look straight ahead. I could not look at the person that was next to me, and just all of these things that make it so that you really don't know everything. And one part knows something, another part does something else, and another part, and so on. It's so linked so that the person themselves won't know, and these criminal cultic groups and familial generational stuff will just keep passing down and won't be detected.
So your parents were aware that you were going to these rituals?
I have just blips and blurbs, blurry uh times of like thinking that my mother was there for sure, not really knowing if my father was at the rituals, but definitely in the medical experimentation and in the mind control program projects. He was definitely there. I do know for sure that my mother did rituals to me at home, like nightly rituals and morning rituals that really tied together with being able to be uh, better groomed for the group, like being put to bed, as if it's bedtime. And then at 10 o'clock every night or a certain night, uh, that would get a part of me to get used to waking up at a certain time and then going to a ritual, being put in a bathtub of water at like 10 o'clock at night. And that's how I would wake up after having had gone to bed. And, then the idea was to get me used to being woke up that way, like as if I'm drowning or dying. And then also teaching me to, as the water would go down the drain, to think that I was going down the drain. And it was a way to put that idea in my head that I was no longer existing. And so then it was connected to other rituals like that would train me how to leave the house without being detected, and lots of rituals every morning at 6. If I couldn't hide in the closet and wake up before my mother would wake me up, she would sexually abuse me. But before she did that, she would tell me that she was dying. And it was as if we had to do these things to keep her alive and to keep me alive, but so confusing. So, it's all connected to then what is taught in um, the mind control and the rituals themselves outside of the home. It's just all connected, and they know what they're doing, and it's very hard to break free of. But it is possible because I'm proof that it is possible. They did a lot of things carefully so that you would have no sign of bruising and things that would be real obvious. Oh, like for
Mm.
instance, with the medical experimentation, um, they did a lot of things that were mock, like fake, like implanting things in your head and doing like this fake surgery. But you really believe, I really believed yeah, that part of me believed that it was real, really real. And they did a lot of that. They did a lot of torture, like with electric shock and drugging, and a lot of mental and psychological torture.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I had things happen like what they call waterboarding. I think that's what it's called. Like having a rag over my mouth and having water, being laid back and having water, lots of like being hung upside down. And they know what they're doing very well. Um, And there was one doctor that when she did um, sinus CT scan, I think it was, um, she saw a lot of scarring and calcification on the top of my skull. And I had memories of having uh, had like these scientists that posed as doctors in a research lab who were saying that they were helping to find a cure for cancer. And supposedly I was one of the special people that they gets to help find a cure for cancer to help other people. And they did like drilling into my brain to see what part of my body they could get to move. And then, just like going up inside the roof of my mouth, places where people would not look and they wouldn't suspect. But just having that proof on that CT scan, that helped to validate that, that really did happen to me.
Because a lot of doctors are involved in this, correct?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. They would give drugs to make you lose consciousness so that you think you're dead. They would give drugs in that process of, like bringing you back. Lots of like, oh, those paddle things on your chest, my chest, and they do these things to harm a person like me. And yet then they rescue you and bring you back so that you have life again, as if you're supposed to be grateful to them and as if somehow they love you. Yes, and they exploit the attachment need that every child has. This is one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my entire life. I made a decision to separate from my 3 adult children for 10 years. And the reason I did that is because my husband, Frank, who I've been married to now for 31 years, he found a shoebox that had love letters that he and I wrote to each other before I moved away and before we got married in our basement at our home. Um, and he brought it up, and there was a message on the top of the box, and it said, Sharon, remember Manchester. And that, my real name is Sharon. I changed it when I moved away from there. That message was for me to forget about Manchester. And Manchester was where I moved from, Manchester, Iowa, when all those things happened, where they reprogrammed me, reaccessed me. They again showed me my dad's hat. They put me in a jail cell, and they made me exchange my life for my husband Frank's life. He wasn't my husband yet, but I had to uh, keep quiet and never tell and never remember, or they would kill him and frame me for my dad's murder and frame me for Frank's murder, upcoming murder. I didn't remember that until maybe a year ago that had happened. But I truly believe that God has helped me every step to have things happen in a way that He allowed, that I don't know if I would have been able to get completely free of them otherwise. Putting Frank in my life, deciding to get a divorce and having my family turn their back on me, just every little thing, and then losing my children. You don't expect that to happen, but my mother and my brother testified in the courtroom against me, that I was a bad mother, and that he would be the better parent, even though their dad was never there for them. And he didn't even know how to be a parent. But they wanted to control, they wanted to try to keep control of me, to keep me quiet. But they also thought that if they took my children away, then I would come back. And they did what they needed to do to get my kids away from me.
But it didn't work.
Mm-mm.
Praise God.
It did
Yeah.
really feel like I am an overcomer who has been through hell and back and touched by darkness, but brought into the light of Jesus Christ, from whom I have received incredible healing. And that is a miracle in itself, because with this type of abuse, sometimes people go to their grave and don't ever remember. Sometimes their life is just, they don't ever get out. But I got out. And what I went from was living in terror, to then living in fear, to then living with panic attacks, to then living in peace. So that is what my life is now. And I can honestly say that just this year, I feel like I am starting to do more than just survive. I'm learning to thrive. And I feel like I'm just touching on life, living. Having an organization like Relentless Hope, and there's other ones that I can think of too, that really are doing everything that they can to not just provide resources, but to change laws and to change, to speak to politicians, the ones that will listen and the ones that um, maybe can do something. But it would be wonderful if the darkness would be exposed, and that there would be light shed on what's really going on in the world, and that it would be stopped. People don't want to believe evil is as evil as it is.